2010, Senator Manny Villar was the frontliner. And they did this hearing with the alleged double insertion of the C5 extension. Then again in 2016, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee also did this to former Vice President Jojo Binay for his alleged asyenda in Batangas. Now, they are doing it again with the alleged overpriced equipment purchased for Mali Pharmaceutical. Natinig na po natin ang istorya na to. Let us not waste the Filipino people's time. Let us not distract our cabinet officials from the true task at hand, and that is to continue fighting the virus. Let us not waste taxpayers' money by holding more hearings. Let us not make use of these hearings to further political ambition. Let us finish the discussions as soon as we have clarity on the subject. As chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee, let me announce that this committee shall lead by example and finish this matter by today or the latest Friday, even if it means extending until nighttime. Wala pong pahinga para lang tapusin ito. And when it is clear that corruption was present or not present, the House Blue Ribbon Committee shall rest its case and end the hearing. Wala nang paligoy-ligoy na. On that note, let us begin today's hearing. Let us be all reminded to remain on apikatan so we can proceed and focus on our real job, and that is to find and implement ways to defeat COVID-19. Thank you very much and magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Sir, can we request for the documents of all the biddings, or not biddings pala, all the procurement documents of the 41 billion transferred to DBMPS from the DOH by Friday, before Friday, Thursday? Can you submit it to the Secretariat, Sir Jonas?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will comply.
Director Jonas, nandun ba kayo sa Senate nung Friday, last week, hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Narinig nyo ba yung sinabi ni Chairman ng Blue Ribbon na payag na siya na walang overpricing basta merong fraud and waste and abuse?
I believe that's correct, Mr. Chair.
So sinabi niya talaga yun kasi wala ako dun na nabasa ko lang sa transcript. So tama po ba yun?
I think so, Mr. Chair. I heard it that way, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, in your opinion, since you took over, when did you took over?
I assumed my position as operations group as OIC last March 2021.
So ito, syempre busy na kayo sa mga hearing, naka-7 hearing na ang Blue Ribbon. So nireview mo na ba lahat ng dokumento doon sa mga subject at hand, itong subject at hand nung inunahan na i-hear ng Senate? Nireview naman po niyo, Sir Jonas?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So now we are still currently reviewing all the documents procured during, with respect to the items and goods procured during the Bayanihan War.
So masasabi niyo po ba may overprice doon sa subject at hand, yung Farmale purchases?
Mr. Chair, I can only rely on the documents and on the statements made.
Yes, kasi nagawa ng market scan, di ba? Nagawa ng market scans yung mga predecessor mo. So based on documents, is there overprice?
Based on the documents, if we refer to the market scanning, Mr. Chair, the prices of the items procured at that time were below the SRP and were below the market prices conducted by the price.
Na nangingilit yung luha niya sa mata. na tinanong ko, bakit mo kasi binenta? Sagot niya, pangkasal natin, mami. Then hinila niya yung kamay ko, hinila niya ako. Yun na yung sinabi niya na, hindi ko na kaya yata, mami. Sabi niya, ikaw na bahala sa lahat, ikaw na bahala sa anak natin. Nabuo yung loob kong ituloy yung kasal. Pero, syempre po, nagtanong pa rin pa ako sa simbahan. Ang hiniling ko lang po sa simbahan, basbasan lang kami sa naging relasyon namin sa 8 taon. Hanggang sa huling sandali ng buhay niya magkasama kami. Di man kita makakasama sa pag-abot ng mga pangarap natin sa pamilya natin. Alam kong isa ka sa gagabay sa amin ng anak natin. May plano ang Diyos, Daddy, at nagtitiwala ako doon. Tuloy lang ang buhay.
Mr. President, I congratulate you on your election and welcome your presidency of hope. Indeed, that is what we need in these challenging times. For nearly 2 years now, the pandemic has upended our lives. The climate crisis has worsened, the inequalities have deepened, and the geopolitical balance is in a state of dangerous flux. Certainly, these are complex problems, but one thing is clear. They all hit the poor the hardest. Injustice is the common thread that ties these issues together. When I spoke before this August body last year, I said that how we address these issues will define our future. From what I have seen, that future will likely be one of inequality. For the poor plays catch up with the rich, with no hope or chance of ever succeeding in closing the gap. We cannot, in our conscience, allow this to happen. An unjust order is inherently volatile. We have to reverse course. How then do we, as governments, reconcile our obligations to our own citizens with our responsibility to the rest of humanity? For the Philippines, we understand that we need to expand our notion of us beyond the nation, so we can work together to secure our common future. We recognize that only inclusive multilateralism can deliver the global public goods we need. And we believe that fairness, equality, and respect should always be the basis of our engagement with one another. Only with this can we correct the injustices that doom the downtrodden all over the world to a life of indignity, and for the thousands during this pandemic, certain death. Mr. President, the picture is bleak. It is a man-made drought of vaccines ravaging the poor countries. Rich countries hoard life-saving vaccines while poor nations wait for trickles. They now talk of booster shots where developing countries consider half doses just to get by. This is shocking beyond belief and must be condemned for what it is. A selfish act that can neither be justified rationally or morally. The plain fact is this pandemic will not end unless the virus is defeated everywhere. Vaccines are key to achieving this. This is why the Philippines committed $1 million to the UN's COVAX facility. This is our modest contribution to our collective fight against COVID-19. We strongly urge our privileged partners to fully support the COVAX facility and further strengthen other cooperation mechanisms. We need this to save more lives, break the cycle of variants, and help ensure global economic recovery. Just as COVID-19 has had an uneven impact on the peoples, climate change has also exposed the varying vulnerabilities of countries around the globe. The risks and burden of a warming climate are simply not the same for everyone. The greatest injustice here is that those who suffer the most are those the least responsible for this existential crisis. But here we are now at a critical tipping point where failure to act leads to cataclysmic consequences for the whole of humankind. The Philippines accept its share of responsibility and will do its part to avert this collective disaster. We submitted our first nationally determined contribution with a target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 75% by 2030. I issued a moratorium on the construction of new coal power plants and a directive to explore the nuclear energy option. But this contribution will be rendered useless if the biggest polluter, past and present, choose to do business as usual. We therefore appeal for urgent climate actions, especially those who can truly tip the balance. Developed countries must fulfill their long-standing commitment to climate financing, technology transfers, and capacity building in the developing world. This is a moral obligation that cannot be avoided. Our world's transition to a green economy must not be at the expense of developing countries' economic vitality. It simply cannot be, or it could be another travesty of justice. Mr. President, the Filipino people aspire for stable, comfortable, and secure life founded on freedom, justice, and equality. We have made significant strides on this, after more than a century of nation building. Today, the Philippines is a middle-income economy and a thriving democracy. But difficult challenges remain. This we do not deny. Millions of Filipinos work abroad under the most difficult and inhumane of circumstances. We call for the abolition of all structures that allow exploitations and oppression of migrant workers. The kafala system is one such behemoth that chains the weak, the desperate, and the voiceless to an existence of unimaginable suffering. Nothing can justify the continued existence of this unjust system. While reforms have been made, the kafala system must be dismantled sooner or later in the name of justice and basic decency. Philippines seeks stronger partnerships to protect the rights of the Filipinos and realize the full potential of our nation. But let me be clear. What we mean is partnership that respects our people's agency. Let me say this again. The government has a mandate and obligation to my people. We will deal with all criminals, including terrorists, with the full force of our laws. The Filipino people want to live in peace, security in their homes and community, free from harm and danger from the lawless. But achieving this goal has not been without challenges. I feel this in no uncertain terms. The law applies to all. I have instructed the Department of Justice and the Philippine National Police to review the conduct of our campaign against illegal drugs. Those found to have acted beyond bounds during operations shall be made accountable before our law. We have recently finalized with the United Nations our joint program of human rights. This is a model for constructive engagement between a sovereign member state and the United Nations. Meaningful change to be enduring must come from within. The imposition of one's will over another, no matter how noble the intent, has never worked in the past, and it never will be in the future. How many more countries shall be made to unravel and descend into chaos before the powerful heed the simple lesson? In dealing with complex problems in nation building, let us consider pragmatic approaches that square ideals with reality. Sure, they may lead us to imperfect solutions, but solutions nonetheless actually work. We will pay the price for the misadventure of the few that spiraled into humanitarian disaster. The Philippines, in line with its long-standing humanitarian tradition, has opened its doors to Afghan nationals, especially women and children during the conflict. As one global community, we must do our utmost to help the Afghan people and all those who continue to suffer. For the Rohingyas, I have instructed our Department of Justice to work closely with the UN High Commissioner on Refugees to prepare a cooperation program for a specific number of Rohingyas consistent with our capacity. The Philippines has limited resources during these extraordinary times. But what we can do for humanity and will uplift human dignity, we will. Mr. President, in a period of profound geopolitical change, it is vital that all countries, big and small, commit to the rule of law fully and firmly. For a world without law is a world of disaster, where the weak is at the mercy of the strong. There can therefore be no other acceptable basis for a global order but the law. We must resolve disputes peacefully, as we manifested in the Manila Declaration of Peaceful Settlement of International Disputes. The Philippines is one with the ASEAN and other stakeholders in ensuring that the South China Sea remains a sea of peace, security, and prosperity. The 1982 UNCLOS and the 2016 Arbitral Award of the South China Sea provide a clear path towards a just, fair, and win-win solution for all. The award must be seen for what it is, a benefit across the world to all who subscribe to the majesty of the law. No amount of willful disregard by any country, however big and powerful, can diminish the arbitral award's importance. Mr. President, we face multiple crises that demand effective global governance. Yet our institutions, including the United Nations, have proven to be inadequate. The UN is a product of an era long past. It no longer reflects the political and economic realities of the world. Democracy and transparency are concepts that reverberate in the halls of the UN. But ironically, the Security Council, the pinnacle of UN structure, violates every tenet of these values. It is neither democratic nor transparent in its presentation and processes. Many member states have spoken firmly, and we agree this simply is not right. If the UN is to lead the world out of the many crises we face, things need to change. The UN must empower itself by reforming itself. Therein lies the hope of humanity. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of the Philippines for the statement just made. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Rwanda to introduce an address by the head of state.
Mr. President, it is my distinct honor to introduce a pre-recorded statement by His Excellency Mr. Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda.
Natutulog ka na naman. generations. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, they paved the way for the realization that the right to form one's own government is not some Western whim, but a universal human right. The Belarusians
ay mga honest na tao. Dahil pinundina nila dahil corrupt yung taong yon. Palagay din natin na itong mga representante, dahil tayo we represent the people, isn't that so? That's why we are elected officers. We're supposed to represent our constituencies. Kung hatulan natin may sala yan, ibig lang dahil crooked siya, ibig lang sabihin tayo, honest tayo. Ngayon, kung lahat pala tayo honest, o marami pala tayo sa atin ay honest, why is the Philippines often, or if not all the time, why is the Philippines always ranked as one of the most corrupt countries in the whole world? Yan, sagutin niya ko niyan. Nagpapakalinis kayo? Aba kung malinis pala ang mga opisyalis natin at malinis pala sa buong bansa, bakit palagi tayong nililista ng Transparency International as one of the most countries in the world? Magtitinginan tayo? Sino kaya dito? Yan ang unang punto ko. Pangalawa, tumigil na kayo ng kapabangga-panggapan nyo, mga artista. Merong mga politiko na alam natin kung anong loopholes nila sa SALN. Deposito ang sinasabi ng batas, pagkatapusan ng Disyembre, katapusan ng taon, magdeklara ka kung magkanong pera mo sa bangko. Hindi ba withdraw nila pera nila sa buwan na Nobyembre o Disyembre para pag naglagay sila, pag nag-file sila ng SALN nila, wala nga silang deposito. O kaya meron lang sila ng couple of thousands. Kasi withdraw nila Pag Enero, i-deposit nila uli. Taong bayan, kayo ang magtestigo. Yan. Bakit hindi natin habulin yung ganon? Pangalawa, palusot. O pangalawa, na ginagawa nila na loophole sa SALN. Lahat ng pag-aari nila, real estate, bank accounts, iba pang pag-aari, lalagay sa ibang pangalan. Yan is very, very widespread. O di wala nga naman sila pag-aari. Dahil lahat, nilagay na nila sa ibang pangalan. Kung bawal ang asawa at ang mga anak, dahil sa batas ay inspeksyonin pati yan, yung mga malapit sa kanila. Di doon sa mga malalayo ng mga kamag-anak. O kaya maski hindi kamag-anak, sa kaibigan na pinagkakatiwalaan nila. What a hypocritical accusation. That is the problem with this country. We're all for honest government, and yet the world condemns us as one of the most corrupt countries in the world. That's why it is difficult to win in any international election, in any international campaign, because the Philippines, among others, has a reputation of being a corrupt country. Isip ng iba, kung corrupt ang bayan na yan, walang matinong lalabas dyan. Walang matinong ibubunga yan. Bawat isa ba sa inyo, walang sala tungkol sa SALN? Bigyan niyo ako ng sapang buhay. Panginoon, bigyan mo ako ng sapang buhay at imbestigahin ko lahat. Isa-isa. Dito sa Senado, sa House of Representatives, tignan natin. Pati sarili ko, imbestigahin ko.
Order, please.
Ang daming loopholes ng SALN na yan. Ba't hindi kayo umimik noon? Ba't ngayon bigla na lang kayong so exercised about a loophole? Well, if that is the case, then let us all just put our assets in dollars and know the purpose of the SALN will be perverted or corrupted. That is true. But what about all the other loopholes? Bakit ngayon lang kayo nagalit tungkol sa loophole na yan? Bakit doon pa? Dahil, yung iba sa atin, ginagamit yung mismong loopholes na yon. Hindi lang sila ma-impeach.
Every day,
bóng trăng trắng ngàn, có cây đa to, có thằng của em già ôm một ngôi nhà. lặng im ta nói vội nghe ở cung chẳng mãi làm chi bóng trăng trắng ngàn có cây đa to có thằng vội già ôm một mối mơ các con dễ về suốt trong đêm khuya hát sông không tiền nên nghèo xa.
At nauna na rin naglunsad ng kanilang tambalan sina Senator Pampilo Lacson at Tito Soto. Darito na ang pinakuling balita kaugnay ng eleksyon 2022.
Sa National Convention ng PDP laban Pacquiao faction kahapon, ipinoklama ng partido si Senador Manny Pacquiao bilang pambato nila sa pagkapangulo sa eleksyon 2022. Binigyan rin ng partido si Pacquiao ng kalayaang mamili ng kanyang magiging running mate.
Tinatanggap ko po ang inyong nominasyon sa akin bilang kandidato sa pagkapangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Handa naman si Vice President Leni Robredo na tumakbong pangulo kung siya ang pipiliing unity candidate ng oposisyon. Ito'y para mapigilan daw ang anyay hindi dapat mangyari.
Yung pagkakandidato ko ba, makakatulong ba siya sa ayaw nating mangyari? Ano ba yung ayaw nating mangyari? Na itong administrasyon na to mag-continue beyond 2022? Na si Marcos makabalik in power? Yun yung mga ayaw natin mangyari. Sabi ko nga, kung one-on-one kami ni BBM, go ako doon.
Sinusubukan pa naming kunin ang pahayag ng Malacanang at ni dating Senador Bongbong Marcos sa sinabi ni Robredo. Nauna rito, inendorso ng Partido Federal ng Pilipinas si Marcos bilang presidential candidate nila. Naganap ang endorsement sa National Convention ng partido nitong Sabado, kung saan ipinalabas ang isang recorded message ni Marcos. Sabi ni Marcos, malaki ang paghanga niya sa partido na nakatuon sa pagsiserbisyo sa publiko at hindi anya sa pamumulitika.
I would like to add my greetings to the PFP on the conduct of the National Convention. I have great admiration for this party, for the work that you have been doing, because you have really been focusing not so much on politicking and maneuverings. Rather, you have been focusing on public service.
Halos 600 pastor ng iba't ibang simbahan sa bansa ang nananawagan naman kay dating House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano na tumakbo sa pagkapangulo sa eleksyon 2022. Sa isang open letter, iginiit ng 588 pastor ang kahalagahan ng pagkakaroon ng leader na may dalang pag-asa sa gitna ng naranasang krisis sa bansa. Nauna nang sinabi ni Cayetano na kinukonsultan niya ang kanyang pamilya at mga kasama kaugnay sa gagawin sa susunod na eleksyon. Yan ang unang balita. Corinne Katibayan, buong puso para sa Pilipino.
Igan, mauna ka sa mga balita. Panoorin ang unang balita sa unang hirit at iba pang award-winning newscast sa youtube.com/GMA News. I-click lang ang subscribe button. At sa mga kapuso abroad, maaari